Other theories, the internet. Oh, the internet sounds so good. It's the internet, guys. It's destroying everything. The problem is everyone got the internet in like 2 weeks in like the 1990s, and so I can't figure out what the cause was. And the thing is, it happened so fast that you can't really say that like it caused this thing here but not that thing there, because almost everyone got it like in a 5-year stretch. So it sounds good, but I can't prove it. People just don't join stuff anymore. Bob Putnam wrote this great book in the 1990s called Bowling Alone. He basically looked at bowling league data for 75 years and found that bowling league attendance has dropped precipitously. And he makes this whole argument that we are socially atomizing. We're not bowling together anymore. We're bowling by ourselves. The Elks, the Moose, the American Legion, the VFW, or how are they doing? Real good, right? The Boy Scouts. They're closing by the thousands right now because we're not joining stuff anymore. What's funny is, you know what Putnam blamed it on? Cable television. That's cute, huh? I think if you wrote that book again today, it would be tweeting alone or Facebooking alone or TikToking alone, right? Everything that he saw then has just been accelerated 100. Because now you can entertain yourself at the house. You couldn't do that 50 years ago. You had to go out and actually talk to people. What a crazy idea. And now it's just easier to stay home than go somewhere. And I think we're worse for it. We could talk about trust all day long, the Catholic Church, Southern Baptist Convention, Jerry Falwell, the Bakers. Like, I could sit here all day. And Joel Osteen with the guy who had money in the bathroom wall. I don't know if you guys heard that story before. A plumber was working in his church and found like $30,000 in cash in the wall of the bathroom at Joel Osteen's church in Houston, Texas about 3 years ago. Those stories matter, man. People listen to those and go, look, it's exactly what I thought. The problem is, no one writes a story about the pastor who just serves and does his job every Sunday, which is most of you, by the way. No one writes stories about planes that land safely. And that's what's happening every Sunday in America, is planes are landing safely, and no one talks about it. The evolution of the family, divorce rates, childlessness, all those kind of things matter a ton. The child-free movement, I talk about that a lot. I think we should have kids. What a crazy idea. I know it really makes my leftist friends not happy with me, but I think you should have a child. It's become a radical statement in 21st century for whatever reason. I don't know what world we live in now, but that's where we are, saying you should have a child. Okay, so let's see. Demographics. Let's talk about like how this is affecting different people different ways. This is the graph that everyone really gravitates to for whatever reason. This is the religious composition of every generation going back to the silent generation. So amongst silent generation, 49% Protestant, 22% Catholic, so about 71% of silent generation are Christians, 6% atheist, agnostics, and then 12% nothing in particular. So amongst the silent generation, 18% nuns, 71% Christians. Good ratio. Everyone's happy. Look at Gen Z. Amongst Gen Z, 22% Protestant, down from 49%, and 15% Catholic. So now we're down to 37% Protestant or Catholic. And then the nuns are 13% atheist agnostic and 32% nothing in particular. 45% nuns, 37% Catholic Protestant. There are more nuns in Generation Z than there are Christians. It's the first generation in American history where that is true. Okay? There are more nuns. About 55% of Generation Z are religious. 45% are not. Okay? It was 80% of the silent generation. You know how American religion's changing? These people are dying, and these people are becoming adults every day. Okay? Yeah.
Could you, for those in the room that don't know the millennials, talk really quick about the different ages?
Oh, yeah. So millennials are born 1978 to 1995, and Gen Z is 1996 or later. We're actually only looking at the oldest edge of Gen Z right now. We don't even know when Gen Z ends, technically. Like, no one's decided that. So they're still, like, Gen Z is not all the way, like, in the data yet because it's only 18 years old and up. We're only seeing, like, the oldest edge of Gen Z. So it ain't getting better. It's only going to get worse from here. So, okay, this is what the American, the composition of America looks like overall. About a third of Americans are Protestant. The number 2 religion in America today is nothing in particular. I'll talk more about that in a second. That's really important. Catholic is number 3, and then something else is number 4, which is like Jedis and Wiccans and weirdos, and just be normal. That's what I was telling. Like, I write posts sometimes about people who click the something else box and write something in. Like one guy's like ancient alien theorist. I'm like, okay, don't know what that is. One is like, I'm an atheist, but my wife's a Lutheran and I go to church with her. So what am I? I'm like, good question. I don't know either. But that's the something else category. Okay. Notice atheists are 6%, agnostics are 5% though. Okay, in the general population. This is 18 to 22-year-olds, college-age people. 1/3 of college-age people look at all the options on the religion question and go, nope. They picked a nothing in particular box, which I'll talk about in a second. I think is really one of the most important developments in terms of evangelism that you can ever ask for. 1/3 of them say meh, shrug when it comes to religion. Number 2 is Protestant. Number 3 is Catholic. Number 4 is something else. But look at atheist agnostic here, guys. 7%, 6%. Look at the general population, 6%, 5%. Notice something? Not a whole lot of difference, right? They're basically the same. They're not more likely to be atheist agnostics than the general population, really. So that's not the story. That is the story at the top, right? 23% to 32%. That's a much bigger difference, okay? That's really where the story's at. Nuns are young, okay? Average adult, nothing in particular, is 42. Average mainline is 56. Average white evangelical is 54. Guys, it ain't looking good, okay? And these are bee swarm plots, so where it's fatter is where there's more people in the sample. So you can like see, like, look where it's bulging out, right, like in the mid-60s. Like, look at all this stuff. Like, in 20 years, those people are not going to be carrying your church much longer because they're going to be infirmed, you know? Not good. But here's a little hope for you guys. I know I'm like gloom and doom. I'll give you a little bit of hope. This is the share who identify as nuns by birth year across the bottom. So this is 1940 here, and that's 2000 over there. You see what the curve of the line's doing? It's leveling off, if not turning downward. So I don't see like just straight hockey stick, okay? It went up, it crested, and it probably is sitting there now. So around 45% is where there's a ceiling in the data. I don't see a future where half of the younger people are going to be nuns. I think 45 or 50% is kind of where it sits and rests for a long time. So I don't know if that's like cold comfort, I know, but there's your cold comfort, okay? It's not continuing to rise. It's actually leveling off around 45 or 50%. I'll skip that. This is important. So the question here is, when is this happening? When are these nuns being generated? To the red bar are people who said they were raised without religion based on what year they were born in. So these are people born between 1950 and 1954. These are boomers. These are when my parents were born. 4% of boomers were raised with no religion. 4%, okay? 13% were no religion when they were 18 to 25 years old. So by their 25th birthday, it got to 13%, which means that 2/3 of people who were nuns at 25 became nuns not because of how they were raised, but because what they changed into when they moved into early adulthood. But look how it changes over time. 1975, 1970, 11% raised nuns. 21% are nuns by their 25th birthday. These are people born in the late 1990s. 14% of them are raised without religion. 30% of them are nuns by their 25th birthday. Okay? So it's two things at once. The share of Americans who are being raised without religion is going up over time, but what's continuing to happen is people are losing their religion as they move into early adulthood. If you look at the data, the most poorest time in your life is about 15 to 25 years old. In the Great Dechurching, we talk about if you go to college and are part of a college ministry or go to church regularly, you are much less likely to leave church behind than if you don't. There are little things that can happen that hold you into a religious congregation. That's what's causing these people to slip away from religion. Okay, fun fact. This blows everyone's mind. Educated people are actually more likely to be religious than non-educated people. Let me say that again. Educated people are more likely to be religious. They're less likely to be nuns than uneducated people. This is a sample of 475,000 Americans, okay? Look who is the most likely to be nuns, people who did not complete high school. Look who's the least likely to be nuns. People with master's degrees, okay? Even at doctoral degrees, it's 24%, which is the same as people who have a 4-year college degree. There's this idea out there that, like, you got to be dumb to be a Christian. Well, not really. Actually, the opposite is true. People who have higher levels of education are more likely to be religious. Let's do, okay, atheists, agnostics, and nothing in particular. This is how we think about the nuns right now. These 3 categories: atheists, agnostics, and nothing in particular. This is really, really important if you want to think about what the future of America looks like, okay? This is what the nuns look like over time. The atheists are in the blue, the agnostics are in the red, and the nothing in particulars are in the yellow. Look at this. The share of Americans who are atheists has gone from 3% to 6%. The share who are agnostic has gone from 4% to 6%. Not nothing, okay? But that's 7% to 12%. That's a 5-point increase, okay? The share of Americans who identify as nothing in particular has gone from 14% to 23%. That's a 9% increase, almost twice as much. It's the fastest growing religious group in America today, and no one talks about them. 14% to 23%. Again, amongst young people, it's the plurality choice. 1 in 3 are nothing in particular. And look, this is, so I just looked at one birth cohort. These are people born between 1983 and 1988. Like the idea that like they're going to come back to religion if they have kids and get married and stuff. This is this generation going from being like in their early 20s to being in their late 30s. So like when they should be doing all those things that bring them back to church. That's not happening. Okay? They're not coming back. Like I know like there's this whole like church growth literature like, oh, don't worry. They'll go to college and sow their wild oats and do the Rumspringa Protestant version or whatever, and then they'll like come back eventually when they have them kids. Guess what the data says? No, they won't. No, they won't. They're not doing it. They're going up and out. They're not coming back. They're leaving and not coming back. Okay, so this is really where the rubber meets the road, though. 51% of atheists have a 4-year college degree. 23% of nothing in particulars have a 4-year college degree. They are not on the same planet from a demographic perspective. They are literally at the opposite ends of the SES continuum. One is doing very, very well. One is doing very, very poorly. Okay? Atheists are doing very well educationally. If you look at, the share with a bachelor's degree, only 23% have a bachelor's degree of nothing in particulars in 2022. They've only risen 7 points on that metric in the last 14 years, which is less than the general population who have risen 9 points. Atheists have gone up 18 points. Look who's doing well and look who's doing not well. Right? These nothing in particulars are not doing well from an educational perspective. And it all bears out when you look at this metric, which is the share with a high school degree or less making $50,000 per year or less. Only 12% of atheists fit both those categories. Right? So I think these are people that are struggling, making less than $50,000, having a high school diploma or less. 12% of atheists, 12% of agnostics. Look at nothing in particulars. 32%, a third of nothing in particulars make $50,000 a year or less and have a high school diploma or less. They are struggling, guys. Economically, they are struggling. Educationally, they are struggling. They are not your atheists with wearing the elbow patches and reading Richard Dawkins and talking about philosophy. Right? These are not who we're talking about. The nuns, most nuns, are nothing in particular. They're not atheist agnostics. 3 in 5 nuns are nothing in particular. Look at this. This is even politics. So the question is, have you done any of these things the last 12 months? Atheists are the most politically active religious group in America today. Okay? Atheists are the most politically active religious group, way more than white evangelicals. So take that. But look at nothing in particulars. Look what they're not doing. They're not going to protests or march. They're not even attending like school board meetings. They're not putting up political signs. They're not contacting public officials. They're not working on campaigns or donating money to campaigns because they don't have any money to donate, to be honest with you. But you see what this is all pointing to? Disconnected, left out, left behind, lost, falling through the cracks, unmoored from American society. They're educationally removed. They're economically removed. They're politically removed. They have low trust. They don't have great jobs. They don't have great prospects. Life has left them behind, and they feel like, guess what? The church is another institution that's left them behind, just like everyone else. They don't feel like anyone speaks for them. I feel like I'm like the nothing in particular like advocate or whatever. Like, I'm here for you. They don't have organizations. My favorite question when a reporter goes, do you know any nothing in particular? I go, no, I don't. I can't find them. Atheists have organizations, guys. There's like 5 of them, and they have tons of money. There's no group for nothing in particulars. No one's rallying for them, and that's a big problem. But here's what's interesting about them, okay? So this is church attendance of a bunch of different religious groups. Obviously, you can see like that Mormons go to church a bunch. I know you're shocked by that. 60% of Mormons go to church every week. But down here at the bottom is nothing in particulars. 84% say they go less than once a year. Okay, 95% of agnostics say they go less than once a year. I know you're surprised by that as well. And 97% of atheists go less than once a year. But guess what? 84 is a heck of a lot better than 95 or 97, right? So they're still slightly more religious on this metric than atheist agnostics are, but I'll show you a different metric now, which really blows my mind. The question is, how important is religion to you personally? Okay? 95% of atheists say it's not important at all. I want to talk to the 5% who don't say that, but 76% of agnostics say it's not important at all. 43% of nothing in particular say it's not important at all. That's pretty interesting, right? Amongst nothing in particulars, 1 in 3 of them say religion is somewhat or very important to them. 1 in 3. They're not turned off to religion like atheist agnostics are. They're actually sort of like, I could listen to this. Like, I might have something to think about this and something to do with this. And here's where it really comes down to. So what this is what's called panel data, where they ask the same people the same questions over a long period of time, so you can look at change at the individual level, not the aggregate level. So I can look at so what this is, so for instance, this category here are people who identified as atheists in 2011. This is where they were in 2020, which is when this data ended. So amongst atheists who were atheists in 2011, 78% of them were atheists in 2020. 80% basically were still atheists 9 years later. Among those who switched, 9% became agnostic and 9% became nothing in particular. So almost all of them, over 95% of them are still nones 9 years later. 3% went to another faith group, and 1% became Christian. I know you guys in your evangelical churches love to bring up the guy who used to be an atheist who now is an evangelical. They are like rare birds, okay? That does not happen. I mean, you can try to convince atheists all day long, but 1%! 1%! You know what Philip Yancey once said? No one became a Christian because they lost the argument. Right? I mean, the data says that that's exactly what's happening here. Amongst agnostics, is it any different? A little bit different, okay? 53% are still agnostic 9 years later. So most are still agnostic. 22% now say they're nothing in particular, and 16% say they're atheists, okay? 2% other faith, and 6% Christians. 6% is better than 1% for sure, right? But look at the top row. Amongst nothing in particulars, 61% are nothing in particular 9 years later, so most stay nothing in particular. 10% become agnostic, and 6% become atheist, okay? But look at this. 8% other faith, 15% become Christians. 15%. Now think about this. This is 15% of 23% of America. Now, it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out, that's 3% of Americans. 3% of Americans who go from being nothing in particular to being Christian over a 9-year period of time. 3%. What percentage of atheists become Christians? That's 1% of 6%. That's 0.06%. 0.06 versus 3. That's a lot of difference, guys. That's a lot. So who should you be focusing on? That's your box right there. The nothing in particulars. They are not turned off to religion as much as atheist agnostics, and they're willing to show that they could come back under certain circumstances. So this is what I think American religion looks like. You've got the religious people over here, and this is everything together, right? So, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Mormons, Catholics, everybody else. 64% here. You've got your atheists over here at 7%. You've got your agnostics here at 6%. And then in this big mushy middle, you've got nothing in particulars. I think they're the transfer station for American religion. Almost no one goes from being an atheist to an evangelical or an evangelical to an atheist. They go through here first. It's like a train station. There's trains going left and there's trains going right. This is where the battle is being fought in American religion, is the nothing in particular category. They need to be thought about more. They need to be seen more. They need to be understood more. They need to be talked about more, because that is really where everything's happening when it comes to American religion. So, some takeaways. One, remember how every politician's like, I'm going to bring jobs back to America. This is what every politician tells you, and they're lying to you, okay? Every time they try, they fail. You know, in West Virginia, there's more people that work at Dollar General than work in coal mines right now? That's a fact. You can look it up. More Dollar General workers than coal miners. We're not getting the coal mines back, guys. That's not how we're going to change the economy. You can fight globalization all you want. It's going to run you over. Secularization was going to happen to America, all right? There was going to be that headwind no matter what we did. It makes our job harder, period. Understand that. You are working with headwinds every single day, and the more you fight it, the worse it's going to get. But you have to understand that there's 60 million nuns. This is a spreadsheet. This is what I look at all day. 60 million nuns, there are 60 million stories. People are going to come up to you and go, I left religion because, duh. Could be everything from I was sexually abused by a pastor. I understand why you left religion, right? Or it could be something like, oh, the pastor stopped wearing ties on Sunday morning and I just stopped going because of that. You get what I'm saying here? You're going to get listen to them though. They want to talk to you. Listen, let them open themselves up to you and hear them as an individual. I think that every person has their own story. I can only talk in generalities here. That's my job as a social scientist. Pastors, I know this is going to be hard. Stop talking about politics on Facebook. Just stop it. What are you doing? Michael Jordan was asked, why are you not more political? And you know what he said? Because Republicans buy sneakers too. What a crazy idea. I believe that Democrats deserve Jesus just as much as Republicans. Please don't run me out of here. And Bernie Sanders voters need just as much Jesus as Donald Trump voters do. And by you being partisan on your Facebook, what you're saying is, if you don't vote like I do, then you don't belong here. And I don't believe that's what the gospel is all about. Okay? I just don't believe that. I can't believe that. I believe the gospel is for everyone. For everyone. So how do we get around that? I like to talk about Imago Dei a lot, which is the idea that every human being is born in the image and likeness of God, which means that God cares about the unborn, but God also cares about the immigrant too. He cares about all of us. And if that makes you mad, good. Right? If you're going to give it to the Democrats today, give it to the Republicans tomorrow, because no party represents God, as far as I can tell. And that is one of the reasons that people are being turned off to religion so much, is because it's being seen as being so partisan. But let me end with a story real quick and I'll be done. The parable of the sower. You guys are aware of this story, I assume? Sower throws seed, some falls on rocky ground, doesn't yield a good crop. Very small amount falls on good ground and yields this huge harvest, right? My church, First Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, Illinois, we are 8 people now. Our budget a year is about $30,000. We spend an additional $15,000 on top of that on our Brown Bag Friday program. We pack a brown paper sack full of 13 food items for the kids in our local schools. Mount Vernon City schools are some of the poorest schools in Southern Illinois. 85% of kids in my kids' schools are on free or reduced lunch. 85% in the year of our Lord, 2023, are on free or reduced lunch. So what do? We just pack a bag with food because these kids were going hungry on the weekends. Good Lord. Right? Like, what? And so our whole point was, we know that we're going to go away at some point, but we want it to hurt when we close. We want it to matter when we close. And so we packed this brown bag. All we do is we put a little piece of paper in there that says, we're First Baptist Church. We don't know you, but we love you. If you need anything, call us. That's all. We don't put a tract in there. We don't try to evangelize. We just try to say, here's who we are. We're trying to help. One day we get a call It's on a Friday afternoon. That's when the bags go on a Friday afternoon. It was a grandmother who was raising her grandson, which is happening more and more in our community because of drugs and everything else. It was getting wintertime. It was about October. She goes, I can't afford a coat for my kid, for my grandson. He needs a coat. Do you have any coats? We were having a rummage sale in the fellowship hall that weekend. We said, come on down and get whatever you want. He and his grandma come down. They fill up 3 sacks of clothes. I never got that kid's name. I never got the grandma's name. I hope that kid becomes Billy Graham someday, because that'll make for an awesome story. But more than anything, I hope that kid, when he's sitting at a bar when he's 25 and someone says something bad about church or religion, goes, you know what? You can believe whatever you want. When I didn't have a coat, they gave me a coat. Right? That's how we turn the tide. By saying what we're for, not what we're against. By how we serve the community, not what we try to impose upon the community. By making the world a little less awful, we're showing what the kingdom of God looks like, right? And trying to bring a little bit of heaven here on earth. And if that makes any difference at all, then we've done our job. Now, the code of that story is we had to give the brown bag program away this year. We gave it to the Ministerial Alliance in Mount Vernon, Illinois. We served for 12 years, $120,000 we spent on that program for a church with less than 30 people. Less than 30 people. And we changed the world. And now someone else is going to do it for us. But I'm just so happy that when we close, that people are going to know that we're the church that fed the kids. I don't think there's a bad way to be remembered if you're the church that feeds hungry kids. I think if we want to push back the nuns and change the culture, doing stuff like that's a good place to start. I'm done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, quick. I got to do the PR stuff. We'll talk about this later, but I got 3 books, 20 Myths, The Nuns. This great de-churching book just came out. Jim Davis and Michael Graham are 2 pastors in Orlando. I did all the data analysis of the book. The data collection for this book cost $90,000. They raised it. They're going to lose money on this book. Okay? It is the best data collection ever on de-churched Americans. I did all of it, all the data analysis side. I think it's probably one of the most important books written in this area in the last 20 years. And I'm not making anything off this, by the way. Like, I don't get a piece of royalties on this at all. I think you should get it, buy it, and understand it. I'm on Twitter at Ryan Burge. I have a website called graphsaboutreligion.com. It's a Substack. I write 2 posts a week. There's a discount for you right there. $40 for a year. You get all the paid posts. And then I'm also the research director for a group called Faith Counts based out of DC. My job is basically to tell people that religion is not bad. What a crazy idea. That religion can actually be a force for good in the world, and I really think it can be. I think the social science backs that up, that it can actually do really good things for mental health, democracy, tolerance, and all kinds of stuff.